page 7, is to know how to support clients who take part in exercise and physical activity and planning gym-based exercise. Now, this is your client interview. As part of your assessment, you're going to ideally pair up with somebody else in the class, and you're going to role play as as a trainer and as a client. Those roles will be reversed, and what you'll have to do is take your client through an interview process in order to extrapolate as much information from them as possible, in order for you to create good goals for your client, and then ultimately create a good training program for your client, or a good training session for your client at level 2. Now, again, every single detail needs to be entered. It sounds like simple information here, but you must write the full name of your client, the client's date of birth, their gender, whether they're male or female, their height, which ideally should be measured in meters, weight, which needs to be measured in kilograms, and BMI, which is a formula which we can work out as long as we have our meters and our kilograms, because BMI can essentially be worked out as your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. So as long as you have those metric measurements, it will make it very easy for you to actually calculate your BMI for your client, your body mass index. So during this interview process, you might ask questions like what your client's barriers to participation. And this is definitely something you would want to ask a client. So what could potentially stop you from training, or what could diminish your training or reduce your motivation, or whatever it might be. So a certain barrier. Now, everybody's going to have barriers, so there must be answers here. Everything needs to be filled out. For example, a social barrier could be the client could say, I just have a lack of time to train. So that means we can go on to the next question. For each barrier that your client has given, describe a strategy to assist your client to overcome the barrier. With that previous example of lack of time, you could say, we can get around that, or we could sort of break down that barrier a little bit, if you like, by maybe building activities into everyday life. So instead of getting the car to the shops, maybe you could walk or jog to the shops, or walk up the stairs instead of get the escalator. So these are ways you're going to overcome the barriers. And you might have the lack of time to actually go to the gym. Doesn't mean you have the lack of time to actually train or do some sort of physical activity. So the next page, page 8. What incentive or reward schemes will you use to motivate your client? For example, you could offer a free water bottle with membership. So if the client signs up, you could give them a free water bottle, maybe ideally with the logo on it. So it might motivate your client, make them feel as part of a team or something like that. That's definitely going to be an effective motivational tool for your client. Which methods of communication will help to motivate your client? List your client's exercise preferences. Set out your client's short, medium and long-term goals. Now your tutor is going to talk through you about creating SMART goals. And very briefly, SMART is an acronym for S, which is specific. The goal must be specific. It won't be enough for you to say, I want to run more, or I want to do more exercise. If I'm being specific about the goal, I could say something along the lines of, to increase my cardiovascular activity across a range of cardiovascular equipment at a minimum time of 30 minutes from only 1 time per week to 3 times per week. So that's creating a specific goal. I'm talking about a specific beginning point and a specific end point. The next one is going to be M of the SMART goal, and that's going to be measurable. So how are you going to measure that? Well, in the example I gave, you could say, I'm going to write out a training diary, and I'm going to fill it out or take a picture of my treadmill or my rower to prove that to my trainer that I trained for 30 minutes, and I'm going to send that to them 3 times in a week, and that's going to be my measurement stick to make sure that that goal was achieved. The A part of the SMART goal is that goal agreeable? Now, as a trainer, I don't think it would be best practice for you to create goals for your client without them agreeing upon that goal. Essentially, you want to both come at a crossroads where you're both agreeing on this goal, and what that's going to do is that's going to improve the motivation of your client, and it's going to also improve the adherence, right? So they're more likely to stick to the training. The R part in the SMART goal is realistic. So you must talk about how this goal is realistically going to be achieved. Now, in the example I gave about doing cardiovascular training 3 times per week, if in the interview process your client says, I'm only available to train twice per week, then we have a bit of a problem there in terms of it being a realistic goal, because their goal is to actually do it 3 times per week. And at the moment, it isn't realistic if they're only available twice per week. And the T part of the SMART goal is your time frame. So essentially, you're going to say that this goal is going to be achieved within this amount of time. How will you review your client's short, medium, and long-term goals? Now, very simply, all you must do here is with your specific SMART goal, the M part, the measurable part, will need to be written in these respective boxes here. So for your short-term goal, your medium-term goal, and long-term goal, you must have the measurable part written down in here respectively. Just moving further down. Again, the assessor's feedback. You want good, clear, concise, but informative feedback from your assessor. If you feel that you haven't received that, maybe ask questions from your assessor. Ask them if they could elaborate on any of the feedback. You want to make sure, even if your answers are correct, you want to make sure that you understand why they're correct, maybe, or what could even be improved upon those answers.